Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the ICA briefing session this afternoon with live questions and answers. So for those of you who were unable to come and join us at our open day sessions in London or Channel Islands that we have recently run, we're very pleased to be running this live webcast session for you so that we can provide you with lots of information around ICA and the range of qualifications that we are currently offering. So my name is Tom Perry, so I am the membership manager for ICA, so I head up the membership function. I'll be providing you with some information today about ICA, and I'll be introducing shortly my colleague Jonathan Bowdler from International Compliance Training, who will be giving an overview of all of our qualifications that we currently offer at each level and going into some detail around some of the courses. So for those of you who've not been to an open day or been on a live Q&A with us before, let me just outline how these sessions run. So we will be spending around about an hour, and we have put together information about our qualifications based on the most frequently asked questions that we receive. So we have put together information to talk about the types of topics covered, how the courses run, etc., and we'll be taking you through that. During the session, there is obviously an opportunity to post questions, and we'll be looking to answer those as we go along. So please take the opportunity for this to be an interactive session for you. Okay, I will just shortly show you some of the information we have put together. So for those of you not familiar with ICA, as the International Compliance Association, we are a professional membership body and an awarding body for qualifications. We are a global organisation with regional partners and centres around the world who undertake training programmes on behalf of ICA. So anywhere in blue on the map is places where we actually carry out face-to-face training workshops, and anywhere in the purpley pink is where we have online students studying our qualifications and programs right now. We have physical offices and bricks and mortar in the UK, Dubai, Singapore and in New York. At the end of last year we recently opened our US office, and we're really excited about growing into that marketplace out in the US. We also have certified since 2001, since the ICA began, over 120,000 people globally. So therefore you will be joining a huge club of people who have undertaken an ICA qualification and obviously gained the professional recognition as a result of that. Now, obviously my role within ICA is membership, and we have members of the association in over 112 countries now globally. So we are really growing a professional network of individuals who have gained knowledge via qualifications and who are now operating as part of a global community, sharing best practice and looking to really enhance their career prospects and their professional networks. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through later on. Importantly on this slide as well is the icon there for the Alliance Manchester Business School. So an important point to make is that all of our qualifications are pegged against the higher education framework, and they are validated by the Alliance Manchester Business School, which is a very well-renowned and reputable university. This ensures that your qualifications are validated by a top university and carry that academic weight and rigour that you would expect from a professional qualification. So often we get asked, are these qualifications well known? Are they well recognised? Will other people know about them? And will they count if I looked for a new job or go for a different career? And the answer coming back is absolutely, because of our partnership with Manchester. They make sure that the qualifications, as I said, are quality checked, that the assessment process is rigorous and is quality checked, so that you know that you are getting the very best when it comes to the assessment and qualification awarding function. And Jonathan will talk a bit more on the assessments and how they work a little bit later on. Okay, so as I said, I will talk a little bit later on in this session around ICA membership and how that fits in with your studying and post-study period. But what I would really like to do now is pass across to my colleague Jonathan Bowdler. He's from International Compliance Training, and he's a course director for International Compliance Training. He's going to give you an insight into the workshops, the course materials, and the topics covered during these courses, which will hopefully help you answer some of those really key questions. Okay? Thank you. Right.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you can now see me. Thank you very much, Tom, for the introduction. As Tom said, my role is really much more to do with the qualifications and ensuring that you get the full educational support that you need whilst carrying out the ICA qualifications. I work for International Compliance Training. International Compliance Training is the main training organisation linked with the International Compliance Association. And we provide the workshops, the materials, the online support, and assist as much as we can in terms of making sure that you're fully prepared for the assessments required to pass whichever ICA course it is you decided to take. So, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the actual qualifications in a moment, but I'm just going to kick off with a couple of the two really big questions that we always get asked when people are first talking to us about the ICA and our qualifications. And the first is, which level and which qualification should I take? Quickly followed by, will it actually enhance me in my career? So I'm going to deal with those first of all up front, and then hopefully a lot of the information I give you after this first couple of slides will show you how what I now tell you about these questions, how that actually comes to light. So which qualification to take and at which level I'll address first, and then I'll move on to the assistance in your career. Now, it's really important to bear in mind, whoops, okay, my slides aren't moving on at the moment. Let me just get that sorted out. That one, lovely. Okay, so let's deal first of all with the question about getting you a new job, or a better job, I should of course say. Some of you observing this webinar will be new to the area of compliance, whether it be financial crime or AML you're particularly interested in, or more generic compliance qualifications. And of course, what it's really useful for is, first of all, being able to put the qualification on your CV to demonstrate to any prospective employer that you are actually studying outside of the standard workplace, putting in that extra effort and showing them that you are prepared to undertake academic training, best practice training, networking with other individuals to enhance your skills that you can then bring to that employer in the workplace. So it certainly helps you get interviews by having an ICA qualification on the CV or the application form. But actually, I think more than that is then when you actually sit down to have an interview, what you have learned from your course and whilst you've been on the course, you will actually be able to give hopefully much better answers to the questions that you get posed. Now, clearly those questions will vary. Those questions will change from role to role and even jurisdiction to jurisdiction because of the differences in regulators and industries. But what we do teach you on the ICA courses is not just about legislation and regulation. That's a key part of the learning process. But what we actually teach you is how to be an effective compliance professional. We're very much about training you as an individual, not teaching you information which you then use in the workplace. That information, whether it be internal policy and procedure or external legislation and regulation, changes a lot. It rotates, it gets replaced, new stuff gets added, and over time, certain things are more important than others. But what never changes is the need for you to be professional and to be able to demonstrate the best practices that you need to be effective at the role you are carrying out, whatever the process, procedures, or legislation sets. So when you are giving interviews, you'll be able to talk about the importance of compliance, the benefit it brings to a firm, how it protects the business, and hopefully be able to tailor those answers also to suit whichever organisation you're having an interview with. So whether it be an internal promotion, a promotion to a new organisation, or indeed your first role within the field of compliance, an ICA qualification will both help you get an interview and help you perform better at that interview. Unfortunately, the one thing I can't say is will guarantee you a job. You've still got to be the best that you can, but we will certainly do the best that we can to help you. So, in terms of the actual qualification you should take, I'm going to take you through the ICA qualifications framework. Now, I should say everything that we're covering, both Tom and myself today, is available on the ICA website. But of course, you have to do a bit of searching around and follow certain links. But if you want to follow up on any of the information that we cover today, You will find it on the ICA website. And if there is anything you can't find, or any questions that you still have outstanding after today, then just contact us. And we have got people standing by, whether they've been in the admin team or in the academic team, people who work for myself, to answer those questions to make sure that we do get the right qualification for you. But the framework itself is actually split, first of all, into two sort of main category areas. This column, in lovely light blue, is the area of regulatory compliance. And the column that's coming up alongside it now in a lovely sort of pinky, mauvey purple colour is that for financial crime compliance. Now, when you look at the bottom layer here, these smaller boxes, these are our certificates. Now, the certificates are the entry level, and these are more of an introduction to a particular topic, giving you the foundation knowledge that you need to, first of all, understand, is it the right area for you to actually pursue a career in, or indeed, specialist areas where later on during your career, you may have taken already one or two of the ICA qualifications, or indeed other qualifications, and then you can come back and use these certificates to top up your knowledge in key areas. Because we update all of the existing qualifications on at least an annual basis, and on a rolling process, we replace and bring in new qualifications depending on what's going on in the environment. So if, for example, you were to look at the ICA certificate in, and I've got to go closer because my eyesight's terrible, combating the financing of terrorism, we have a specialist certificate in that area, or one in the trade-based financing of terrorism. And we're developing new qualifications, for example, when we get new pieces coming along in terms of technology and in cybercrime, and when due diligence, customer due diligence has been enhanced through new regulation or legislation, we follow that up with qualifications in those specific areas. So the certificates, entry level, good foundation, and to a degree, building blocks for specialism later on in your career. And the next level up is the advanced certificate, which we have, and you'll see on this particular slide, there are 3 advanced certificates in compliance, 1 in compliance itself, 1 in business compliance, which is non-financial services related compliance areas, because the original qualifications all grew out from that financial services sector, and obviously the demands and the topics and therefore the syllabus that we teach does vary a little from sector to sector. And we've recently introduced last year 1 in legal compliance, specifically to meet the demands of law firms and those law firms having to appoint a compliance professional. In the world of financial crime, we have advanced certificates, and again, it's so small, I need to lean forward slightly, in first of all, managing fraud, secondly, in anti-money laundering, thirdly, in customer due diligence, and then fourthly, in sanctions risk. So these key areas, again, are all financial crime related, but in 4 slightly different areas. Beyond the advanced certificate level, the next level up, are the diploma level qualifications. And these are for more experienced practitioners, particularly those looking for management roles and roles where they will undertake the leadership of compliance, whether it be in governance, risk and compliance, the broader, more general topic, or the more specialist but still incredibly important areas, anti-money laundering or financial crime prevention. So there are 3 different diplomas that we offer, and the diploma level courses, as I say, take you into the realm of thinking more tactically and even strategically, not just about what it is to be a compliance officer and to do the job, but to actually do it in the most efficient way, the most effective way that supports your business, and to inform the business, to make sure the business understands the requirements that the regulatory environment is placing upon them. And we find as we get into this level, and also, of course, which I'll come on to the next level, which is our highest level, that the skills required become softer skills. They become more about communicating, to influence others, to demonstrate understanding to others, that you understand why there are challenges and risks the business faces, and how you can help the business meet those. So the final level is very much for leaders. We run professional postgraduate diplomas in both governance risk and compliance and financial crime compliance. And these are very much for people who either are or have ambitions to report to the board or actually on the board themselves. So these are the leaders, these are the people setting the strategy in organizations. So the 4 levels, as you can see on here, take you right from introductory levels towards the bottom end of the screen and take you up through to board level qualifications. And all of these qualifications are also benchmarked to exterior academic standards. We use the Academic Standard Council in the UK in terms of measuring against certain levels of qualification that allow us to compare our qualifications with those in universities and colleges. So, for example, the highest level qualification is equivalent to 1 year of a master's degree. The diploma equivalent to 1 year of a not a postgraduate degree, a graduate degree. So right down to, as I say, the advanced certificate and the certificate level, which are more sort of akin to high school certificates, that kind of qualification level. This enables you to demonstrate to either your employer or also, of course, your regulator that the qualifications we offer are not just practical on-the-job qualifications, they are also have built in the academic rigour, and, as Tom mentioned earlier, through our quality assurance partner at Manchester University, through the Alliance Manchester Business School, they're actually awarded in conjunction with Manchester. So their name is on our certification as well. So you have that extra kudos of the qualification, as well as coming from the ICA, as also being given to you with either Manchester as our QA partner, or actually awarded with Manchester at the diploma and the postgraduate level. Now, as I say, all this information again is available online, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the 4 levels as you move up the screen, and then the 2 key areas of regulatory compliance and financial crime compliance. Obviously, at the lower levels, you can then break that down into much more specialist areas, and what you've got to ask yourself is, which qualification suits the role I currently do the best, if I want to become better at that, or which qualification suits the role that I want to do next, whether it be your first role or whether it be the next role in your career progression. Even at that point, you might still be sort of split between 1 or 2 qualifications. You're not sure which one to do. So the last thing to do is bear in mind to choose the one that you enjoy the most, the one you think you'll get the most out of. Because when you're studying, it helps if you enjoy the topic. And if you pursue your studies in the area of your interest, then hopefully that will help you develop your career in the areas in which you're most interested as well. Okay, so I'm just going to move on and just sort of very briefly explain the practical differences between the 4 different levels of qualification. First of all, the certificate. Now, the certificate's normally completed in 3 months, and it's completed by a 25-question multiple-choice online questionnaire. The questions aren't just straightforward, is it A, B, C, or D? There is still some analysis involved in the multiple choice. For example, you'll be given alternative answers to look at, and you'll have to sort of work out which is the correct answer or which is the most correct answer. So there's still a little bit more sort of analysis involved, but at a very lowish level because it is multiple choice. Some of the certificates have a 1-day workshop, others don't. And the other thing to bear in mind throughout this presentation is in some jurisdictions the courses come with workshops where you come along to a classroom for the day, there'll be a tutor there face-to-face, and you will be able to interact, do exercises and ask questions face-to-face. Or alternatively, if there isn't a workshop in your jurisdiction, then we do online virtual classrooms. They're slightly shorter in length, normally 2 hours or so, but again with a live tutor, with interaction, questions, answers, and as I say, debate backwards and forwards, but more condensed down to be able to be done online, and a little bit more in terms of workbooks and working exercises that you do yourself, as opposed to doing them in a workshop with a group of people. Now, as you move up from the level 2, that's one of the ways of measuring on the academic scale, certificate. The next level up is the level 4 advanced certificate, which normally takes approximately 9 months depending on when you sign up. And now we begin to get into assessing you more through your rational thinking, application of the knowledge. And that's why you need to complete an assignment. There's one assignment of 2,500 words to complete. And that assignment normally allows you to base the assignment on your own industry sector and your own jurisdiction. The one way in which that sometimes doesn't happen is if we give you a case study, in which case, of course, the question is based on the case study you're provided with. The assignment is about applying the knowledge to either your own jurisdiction and industry or the case study you've been given. You will then follow this up with the second half of the assessment, which is a 1 hour 45-minute examination at the end of the course. This examination is open book, as are all our qualifications, apart from the multiple choice online tests. They are closed book. And the two parts of the assessment, the assignment and the examination, count for 50% each of the overall mark on the course. And you get 2 one-day workshops or 2 virtual classrooms. The level 6 qualification, so jumping up another 2 levels, is the diploma level. The diploma for those who are experienced in their field, looking to lead and be managers in that field. And this lasts between 9 and 12 months, depending on when you enroll. And basically the amount of assessment doubles, plus a little bit more, because instead of 1 assignment you do 2, and the maximum word is 3,500 this time. You then do a 3-hour, 15-minute examination, doing twice as many questions in the exam. And this, as well as the syllabus being more in-depth and broader, the assessment is more in-depth and broader as well. You really are being asked to demonstrate some critical thinking here, to analyse not just what is it you must do, but why do you need to do it? What are the alternatives? And also, it's not just thinking about the role in which you're studying in, whether that be money laundering prevention or a compliance function. It's about how that function or that money laundering reporting officer reports to the rest of the business, how you interact with the business and even the outside of the business, the regulatory environment, your clients, your customers, your shareholders perhaps, law enforcement when you're working in financial crime. So the syllabus becomes bigger, becomes more in depth, and you are tested much more on your understanding of how to be a really strong compliance professional. Therefore, the workshops also double, and you do 4 workshops, one-day workshops. Now finally, the highest level qualification, the professional postgraduate, this runs slightly differently. In the professional postgraduate, you attend 2 residential weekends. At the moment in the United Kingdom, we are looking to roll those out further around the world, but as things stand, they are just in Oxford. And you attend these weekends in Oxford, and at each weekend you have 4 masterclasses. We fly in some of the best tutors from around the world in 8 specific key topic areas that we keep under review and amend and change as required. And you have to write a 1,000-word evaluation of each of those masterclasses. That learning journal is half of the assessment. And then the second half of the assessment is a 2 to 3 hour interview. The interview is competency-based, and you are being assessed on your ability to both demonstrate the competencies that you have selected, and these competencies we give you a whole range to select from, relating to governance, risk compliance, or financial crime compliance, but also that you are able to demonstrate critical thinking from the 8 masterclasses you've had. And that's basically explaining to us what you've learned on each of those masterclasses, why it's so important to you, and how you can then apply it in the workplace. So the practical application of these cutting-edge ideas. So overall, 2 residential weekends, writing a learning journal, and this 2 to 3 hour assessment interview. So hopefully that gives you an idea about the 4 ways in which the assessments are carried out across the 4 different levels. And again, this might help inform you as to which level is the right one for you at this point in your career. Again, answering that question, which one is right for me, we at the end of the day can only advise you that a final choice has to be your own. But we would always recommend, as I say, that you perhaps look at what is the right one for you, and if it's clear, great, go for it. But again, if you're split between 2, then pick up the phone and talk to us. And by talking to us on a one-to-one basis, one of the tutors probably, or maybe one of the support team, they will be able to answer those questions for you that make it clear which is the right level for you. Now, the way in which the whole course operates is under what we call blended learning. There is an element of self-study. Each course comes with a manual, anything between about 80 pages for a certificate, maybe 250 to 300 on the diploma courses. These manuals need to be reviewed and read, and the learning extracted from them. But then we run the workshops and all the virtual classrooms. And that's where we take the learning and we talk about how we can apply it to our own firms, in our own jurisdictions, and in our own industries. We also, in the virtual classrooms and the workshops, talk about the assignments. The assignments then give you a chance to apply the learning to a topic based on the assignment question, but either with a case study giving you all the background information you need, or enabling you to base it on your own jurisdiction and your own industry and sector. While all of this is going on, you have an online tutor. So there's tutorial support via Q&A forums. There's also support with regard to assignment techniques, examination techniques, revision skills, and lots of links, both via the ICT and ICA websites, to further reading and research that you can carry out to enhance your learning and, again, be able to sort of specialize in your sector and understand what your regulators are talking about in your industry. We try and keep the assessments, and certainly the virtual classrooms and workshops, really bang up to date. If something happens the day before a workshop that is relevant to the content of the workshop, we will talk about it, because we try and make the courses as practical as we can, as well as following the academic rigor. And what you get from an ICA qualification is the academic rigor, which means you are enabled to have a certified qualification with your certificate from the ICA in Manchester Business School, but at the same time you get the learning and the knowledge that you can then take back and apply in the workplace. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just very briefly talk a little bit about how, as a student, you will learn the tools that you have at your disposal, before then quickly running through some of the high-level syllabus on the qualifications. So, we have an online learning platform accessible via the internet, so wherever you are in the world, as long as you've got internet connection, you can access your materials. Those materials include webinars, pre-recorded webinars, short, sort of, some of them are 5 minutes, some of them 15 minutes, but little learning bites to enable you to revise or refresh or add to your knowledge as you've been reading through the materials. The assignments are hosted on the online learning platform, and you submit them that way as well. And there's a whole section to help you with the revision process as you come towards the end of the course and you prepare for the exam. Each of the modules on your course, each course is split into modules and or units. There are self-assessment questions with answers at the end of each unit, so you can self-check as you go that you are taking on board the knowledge, and it might identify areas you either need to go back to or you need to ask a tutor for some help. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, there are also further reading lists, plus the links to lots and lots of resources. Pretty much, for example, all regulator sites around the world you can access or link to from the ICA library. The most important element while you're on the course, though, is probably the Q&A forum, because that is an open forum. All students on the same course have access to the same forum. So students will interact with each other on that forum and talk to each other about their assignment and their studies. And the tutors also monitor it every day, or try to, depending on where we are in the world. But we try and get back to you at least an absolute maximum of 48 hours. So there's always that online help there. And if you're lucky, there might be a tutor online as soon as you post your question. Okay, so I'm now going to go into talk a little bit about financial crime compliance, including AML, and then I'll talk a little bit about governance, risk and compliance. Now, again, I'm only going to give you a flavour here, and also talk about the workshop and how the assignments work before handing back to Tom to sort of wind things up in terms of your ICA membership. Everything I'm going to cover here is covered in more detail again online, but again, anything you're not sure about, just pick up the phone. So let's start with AML. What you've got here is a list of all the specific AML qualifications. So I'm not going to read those out in full, but you'll see there's 4 certificate level, 3 at advanced certificate, 1 diploma, and 1 professional postgraduate diploma, that being in financial crime compliance, which includes AML. Now, as you drill down through the hierarchy of these qualifications, the syllabus gets a little bit simpler and a little bit narrower. So think of it in terms of you come in at certificate level, and as you move up through advanced certificate and diploma, it broadens and deepens. So that eventually, you've done the diploma, potentially the postgraduate, you have a really good, strong, in-depth knowledge of the AML subject matter. Now, you do not have to do each qualification in turn. You can come straight in a professional postgraduate if you meet the entry criteria. So again, if you look online, you will see what the entry criteria is for each level of qualification. But basically, there are no entry-level requirements for certificates and very few for advanced certificate, because a lot of people new to the industry and new to these roles don't have any experience. Diploma generally requires experience, and professional postgraduate requires senior management experience. But you'll find the detail online. In terms of the topics covered when it comes to AML, this is just a taster. But things like identifying the key risks that face your industry. So in the workshops, we will talk about risk management techniques and how you identify key risk, but we will then sort of start allowing you to do exercises to apply it to your own industry sector and your own jurisdiction. Because again, within each jurisdiction, regulators will have different ideas sometimes about where the priority should lie. You might get an IMF, International Monetary Fund, review of your jurisdiction and a report coming out, and clearly that will then be the main driver of change for the next year or two. So we focus in not necessarily on what are the key risks in your jurisdiction, but more about how do you make sure you identify all of the key risks? How do you know where the emerging threats come from and where you will go to spot them? So it's more about the skills required than just telling you what we think the issues are. This means that in 10 years' time, what you learn on this course will still be relevant. And it's not just teaching you about what is there today, and you would then have to refresh your knowledge every 2 or 3 years, because as you all know, the AML environment changes rapidly. So things like new technology, virtual currencies, Bitcoin, blockchain, compliance, what are the implications? How is that going to change things? What do we need to be aware of? What opportunities does it bring your organization, but therefore, what potential risks does it bring? The globalization of regulatory compliance, particularly in AML, means that we do have to look at global developments and interaction and cooperation between jurisdictions. Understanding who we're doing business with our customer due diligence, and with regards to organizations, beneficial ownership of assets are absolutely critical. And again, part of the building blocks of anti-money laundering techniques. So again, understanding how these things develop, where we've come from, where we're going to, is important so that what you learn on the course can still be applicable going forward. And then, of course, there are some things that are incredibly important now and must be focused on, such as the whole sanctions regime, the whole sanctions compliance requirements on a global basis, how that's changing and developing from simple-ish financial sanctions to much more political sanctioning that we've been seeing in the last 2 or 3 years. What differences are there between financial and political sanctions? Do they present different risks, for example? Okay, so I'm going to move on, but as I say, again, the qualifications at AML, these are just some of the topics. You can go online and look at the detailed syllabus under each of the individual qualifications. Here's an example of an AML assignment question. So this question basically puts you in the position of an AML consultant, and you've been contacted to advise a newly regulated firm, and you'll see operating in a sector and jurisdiction of your choice. So you can base it on your own jurisdiction and your own sector of industry. The senior management team of this firm require an independent assessment of the legal and regulatory requirements and industry best practice in respect of AML and terrorist financing risk areas to which the firm is subject. So we're not just looking again at legislation and regulation. We're also taking it that step further, which you have to do in the workplace, looking at best practice. How do we make sure we comply with legislation and regulation, but do so in such a way that benefits the organization, doesn't inhibit it meeting its commercial objectives? So you need to produce a briefing paper for them designed to improve their understanding and knowledge of some of the key AML and CTF issues. The briefing paper should cover, and then we get a list of areas that it asks you to cover. Whoops, go back a slide, Jonathan. There we go. And so we break it down for you. We give you an audience, that you choose the jurisdiction, you choose the sector, and then you can therefore build the content around the framework that we give you. And then whilst you're completing the assignment, you can ask questions using the Q&A forum, and both other students and the tutors will come back and answer those questions. We do, of course, reserve the right not to give a full answer, because you might be asking us to answer part of the question for you. But we'll certainly give you ideas about structure, how to break it down, and any specific questions you have, we will try and point you in the right direction. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a flavour of an AML question. Moving on to financial crime prevention, some of the key topics covered there. First of all, the fact that it's constantly in a state of flux, the changing threat, and that we're seeing more and more crime being carried out by well-organised organisations with assets behind them, with proper risk management planning. So they're not just criminals, they are organised criminals in proper organised gangs, set up almost like, or with as much due diligence as a commercial organisation. So we're now fighting organisations that really have done their own risk assessment. They understand the risks they face in committing the crimes they commit. They have their own objectives, just as your organisation does. And this changes the landscape somewhat. So we've got to think about how we deal with crimes committed at both the individual level and at the organised crime level, and everything in between, because it's a scale. We're also focusing on the fact that the whole reason we have legislation around financial crime protection is that it's about protecting consumers, your clients and customers, and therefore your industry, your own firm, as well as society as a whole. Too much financial crime going on in an industry will damage it, damage its reputation, people won't invest, or they'll invest elsewhere. So it can be very damaging to industries and whole jurisdictions, as well as to individual firms. We've seen a lot of new regulation and legislation, so as the scope of regulation increases, the risks increase with it, both the legal risks, the regulatory risks, and of course with financial crime there's high reputational risk to consider as well. If your organisation got mixed up and was named in the media as facilitating financial crime, then of course that's going to have a serious detrimental impact on your organisation. And we're also starting to understand, in terms of best practice, that we can't look at financial crime as a department on its own within an organisation. Whilst there may be a financial crime department or a head of financial crime, it has to be embedded throughout the business. Where does the first line of defence come in when it comes to financial crime prevention? How much should a second line be doing? How much do you embed? How much do you centralise? How do you step back and take the holistic approach to financial crime prevention? This again, part of the syllabus, part of what we do, and at each individual level, we either begin to look at it and just get the basics, or we start going into more depth. Why does this happen? How do we prevent it? Why do we choose one way over another? And again, by doing this, we begin to show our firms, the organisations we work for, the benefits of what we're doing. So, in terms of the financial crime qualifications, you'll see we have 5 of those again, 2 certificates here, one in generic financial crime prevention, one specifically in anti-corruption, then the advanced certificate in managing fraud, before moving on to the diploma in financial crime compliance. At this level, that covers all financial crime except the anti-money laundering, which has its own diploma. And then the professional postgraduate is the same qualification that was at the top of the list for the anti-money laundering professional postgraduate's diploma. We just have the one that covers all financial crime. Now, in terms of knowledge bites and knowledge key areas, we're looking at managing crime risk. So it's not just about reducing financial crime, there's the risk management approach to financial crime. Where are your priorities? How much resource do you use in what areas? What's the most effective use of your resource? How do you identify all of the financial crime risks across your product suite? So we look at that in terms of managing the financial crime risk as opposed to simply process and procedure for preventing financial crime. Now, every product and service has its own weaknesses and its own strengths, so we look at fraud typologies. We also go into more depth in anti-bribery and corruption, depending on which course you're doing. We look at financial, corporate and business fraud, so bringing it out from the retail side and individual customers into trade finance, for example. And of course the growing focus on electronic crime, cybercrime and data security. And if you're in Europe, you'll know the key focus on the General Data Protection Regulation that's in the process of being introduced across Europe. That's brought the focus really strongly back onto data security as well. And of course we look at how we investigate these issues, where and when to prosecute, how recovery works, basically looking at managing the output when financial crime does actually occur to mitigate the impact. It's all risk management to a greater or lesser extent, but looking across financial crime prevention within your organisation. Okay, I've got another example question here. This is an assignment for financial crime. Whoops, just a bit quickly. And in this particular one, it's just basically saying that because it's high on the regulatory agenda, you are expected to identify, quantify, manage, and monitor financial crime risks. And the question, first of all, starts with saying, in this case, it picks a particular regulator in the UK, but if you weren't UK-based, you would be able to choose a regulator in your own jurisdiction. And it asks for their approach. How do they deal with the risks associated with financial crime? Before then moving on and talking about a sector of your choice, in this case in financial services, with whom you are familiar, to look at and evaluate two key areas of fraud, typologies of different products or different services. Before finally talking about the controls you would put in place at firm level. So you can see how this question starts at a very high level at regulator, moving down into industry sector, and before ending up at what would you do in an organisation when it comes to an overall financial crime prevention framework. And quite a lot of our questions enable us to do this. Start with the big picture, understand why we're doing something, but finish up very much with saying, so what do you need to do in your firm and why would you do it? Okay, I'm going to finish off with governance, risk and compliance. Governance, risk and compliance, again, different qualifications at all the levels, 2 certificates, 3 advanced certificates, and diploma before the professional postgraduate in governance, risk and compliance. And you'll notice the top 2 qualifications are in governance, risk and compliance. The certificates and advanced certificates are in more just compliance areas, although there is a certificate in corporate governance as an introduction to that area. And the reason behind this is, as you become more senior, you become less of a need to know the detailed technical compliance controls and more about managing risk, managing regulatory risk, and then the information that you use at senior level, board and executive level, which is the corporate governance piece, how you help the business be successful commercially, albeit within a heavily regulated environment. So the key areas in terms of focus, we start broad. Why do we have the current regulatory environment? How have we got to where we are today? What can we learn from that? And where are we therefore going to go in the future? You can actually learn quite a lot from looking back in terms of what we might expect going forward. We also look at the commercial aspect of governance, risk and compliance. Yes, these areas are regulated and there is the regulatory risk and requirement to manage that. But if you do it well, it actually enhances the success of your organisation through more effective risk management and better corporate governance. It helps you understand how to use your resources as effectively as possible. So we look at different structures that can be used to manage regulatory risk. And we also look at how you would then go about implementing the most appropriate, the most effective, the most resource effective systems and controls in place to manage governance, risk and compliance. All of these areas are done in such a way that you build the skills required to be a governance, risk and compliance professional. So it should be reusable in terms of how you develop through your career, and of course you can move through the qualifications. But it's still very much skills-based, looking at how you take the knowledge and apply it practically, pragmatically to your own jurisdiction and your own firm. But the skills you learn are transferable, not just from firm to firm, but industry to industry, sector to sector, and even jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We've also launched a certificate in conduct risk recently, because of the shift we've seen towards behavioural compliance. So we start looking at the fact that a lot of regulators are now, instead of saying this is what you must do and this is what you mustn't do, to this is how we expect you to behave. This is how we expect you not to behave. How do you build systems and controls for behaviour? So here's an example assignment question for governance, risk and compliance. This is producing a board paper in a regulated firm, jurisdiction and sector of your choice, looking at how the current economic and political environment, together with the increased focus from politicians, from the media, impacts upon or could impact upon governance, risk and compliance in your chosen firm. Really big piece, this one, to step back, consider the geopolitical environment. Why do you have the regulation you have? How might it change? What might drive that change? And you've got to use examples, and the topics are, for example, what's happened in the last 5 years to bring us to where we are today, the current hot topics, what's changing right now, and why that's important to your organization, what you think is coming in the future, known developments, things that you know are coming up, things that might come up, what might be happening. So you can see in this question how we've gone from understanding the past to bring us to where we are today, what are the key factors to be focusing on today, and what that might be telling us about the future. Then how does this impact on your firm? The firm you've chosen, its structure, its strategy, and the objectives of the GRC functions within that firm. This kind of assignment quite often then gets adapted, usually distilled down from 3,500 words, and actually presented in the real world back to your own board. It's very practical and very useful. And then finally, where are the threats that could prevent you doing what you're supposed to be doing? So we go through the whole risk management process basically and look at what you could be doing, how you could do it, and then what might get in the way. So you can manage those threats, use risk management on them, and actually try and make sure that going forward you are able to put something towards your business that says this is how we are going to run governance, risk and compliance successfully in this business today. So very practical, but still based on strong academic background and learning that enables you to produce something that you can actually present to your own board. Okay, so that's it for me in terms of what I wanted to cover on terms of the qualifications. Now, as Tom said earlier, please feel free to continue typing any questions as he goes on and talks a little bit now about the ICA as your professional body going forward. But I'm going to sign off just for now and let Tom finish off the presentation. But I'll keep an eye on the questions and answer any of those as well as we go along. Okay, so hopefully, Tom, you can switch that back to yourself and I'll disappear from your screens.
Okay, so thank you, Jonathan. In terms of ICA membership, I know it's a couple of questions that people are posting around resources that we offer that can help support you during your studies or afterwards. So I'll cover some of those so the questions now, hopefully, with the information that I have. So ICA membership will be part of your studying. So upon enrolling upon a course with ICA, you will also become a member of the professional body. You can do that separately and after you have completed the course as well. So it's not just during your study period. You can remain a member of the professional body once you've completed your qualification as a mark of your professionalism. So what is ICA membership? Why join? What does it provide people with? So ICA membership means that you are a member of the professional body, and what you are subscribing to do is to fulfill the code of conduct that we publish. So for our members, we set out a code of conduct and code of ethics that we expect members to follow. Things such as act with integrity, be honest, influence effectively, the kind of core values that we expect of compliant professionals in the modern age. Also, your membership is a mark of professionalism. It tells the outside world that you are a person that upholds this code of ethics. But also importantly, we also mandate that you must complete a CPD regime, so a continual professional development regime of 35 hours per year of professional development in the compliance area. This can be made up from a lot of the kind of blended learning approaches that Jonathan mentioned earlier. So it can be videos, conferences, e-learning packages, short courses, and also importantly, qualifications. So during a study period, for example, if this year you were to study a diploma course, that would cover your entire 35 hours of CPD. So there would be no need to complete any further. If you undertook a certificate, that would contribute 10 hours towards your 35 hours of CPD for the year. So in terms of the icons you've got on your screen right now, these are the headline benefits that we continually receive back from ICA members when we ask the questions of why did you join ICA and what are the key benefits that you get from being a member of the organisation. So knowledge is obviously an important benefit for members, and that is gained from our CPD library that we have online on our website, accessible only to members, and that contains videos, e-learning packages, so short training courses. We have articles, quick guides, lots of different podcasts, lots of different methods of learning, all in bite-sized pieces, which you can view on any device, phone, tablet, or desktop computer. And these can contribute towards your learning for the year, and you will receive CPD points for completing the reading or assessments attached to those pieces of CPD. We also importantly have our In Compliance magazine, which many of you may have seen already, which we publish 6 times per year for our members. That will be a digital copy, or for our top level members, they receive a hard copy posted to their home address. That contains industry news, relevant articles, careers sections, and also articles from other members across the world who are sharing their success stories or key learning points from their career in compliance. So the knowledge piece is hugely important. Secondly is the community, and being part of a group of like-minded professional people who are continually trying to push the profession forward, but also importantly who are facing the same challenges within compliance that you are facing every single day. So being part of that community provides safety, it provides networking opportunities, you can tap into other people's advice, and also you can actually contribute by providing advice back to others, which is a key benefit that a lot of our members do enjoy. And thirdly, the icon here is around recognition. So clearly, being a member of the professional body for compliance is going to provide you with some external recognition. There are designations that you can use after your name for business cards, email signatures, when you are an associate or professional member or a fellow member, and I'll show you those levels in a moment. And the conditions for being able to use that is that you are a qualified member of ICA because you've completed your CPD for the year, you've subscribed to the Code of Conduct, and obviously you're a paid member of the association. And we're constantly working to boost the reputation and image of the compliance professional so that you further get that recognition as being a member. Okay, so I've touched on some of those resources. There's some icons here to depict some of those. So the In Compliance magazine in the bottom left. Obviously we have the CPD Centre, which is the real hub of information which is accessed online. I noticed that a few people asked around short courses and webinars. We do offer a number of different platforms to learn from. So we have recorded webinars on hot topics. We even have recorded live events. So where ICA has held a conference or briefing session on a hot topic, we record those and we store them in our CPD library so that you can access them if you weren't able to attend face-to-face. All that is available for members. Some other items, the top right-hand corner, something called a quick guide that we offer. So these are great documents. They're a 2-page summary of some of the key headline information that you may wish to revise and get up to speed on. So for example, we have a quick guide on GDPR, which obviously is a huge area of regulation coming in next year. So if you wanted to go back to basics and get the real 2-page summary of what is GDPR, what do I need to know, what are the key changes coming, we've summarised it quite nicely there for you. We also have quick guides on corporate governance, as an example, so that if this is an area that you're new to or that you're looking to head into a meeting to talk to somebody about, we've outlined what is corporate governance, what are the key benefits, what are the key risks associated with corporate governance, so that you can, again, get up to speed on some of that information. And finally, at the bottom right-hand corner, you have some of our face-to-face events that we run. So we run members events quite regularly throughout the UK and globally as well. So just recently we've run some members events in the Channel Islands, in in the Malaysia, Singapore region as well, so for our members. So you'll see those on the ICA website. So we have an annual calendar of events, and we have a big event later on in November in London. So you please watch out for that one as well, around hot topics and ICA. Okay. So I mentioned the membership journey briefly. So anybody joining ICA, either being new to the profession or enrolling onto a course for the first time, will become what we call an affiliate member of ICA. So you'll be entered in to become a member. Upon completing an advanced certificate course, you will have the opportunity to upgrade your membership and to become an associate member of ICA. And this is where you are then able to use the designation AICA as an associate of ICA on your business cards, email signatures, etc. And this is recognition for you becoming a qualified member of ICA. The next step up then is to become a professional member of ICA, and that is for those of you who've completed a diploma level qualification. So if this is the course that you're contemplating studying, upon completing that, you will have an opportunity to upgrade your professional membership and to become an MICA, so you get to use a designation after your name. And finally, the top level of membership which we offer is the fellowship member, a really elite club of people who have achieved that level, and that's because they've either completed a postgraduate diploma course, as Jonathan was talking about earlier, or they've completed 5 years as a professional member with ICA, and you have the opportunity to upgrade your membership. And within those levels of membership, there are some exclusive benefits for fellows and for professional members to recognise that level of achievement. So, in terms of membership, there's lots of information available on the ICA website. So please feel free to have a look on there. All your questions should be answered on there. But I think the important messages from me, to follow on from what Jonathan has said, is that membership is something that will be there to support you during your studies. It is a complement to the course materials and workbooks that you will receive. Increasingly, chief examiners and markers, when deciding upon the difference between a pass and a merit or distinction grade, will be looking for you to demonstrate your wider reading and your research of hot topics and key themes, and so you can evidence the latest case studies. And that is very much what our membership offering will provide you during your study period. So you'll be able to access that CPD library, you'll get up-to-date news and information emailed to you, and magazines that you can then reference and use in assignments and exam questions. So there's a direct link and complement to your study period. Obviously, post-study, some of the questions coming up today were, how do I make sure that I keep my knowledge up to date before undertaking another course? So if I've completed an advanced certificate qualification, before I go on to do a diploma qualification, how do I keep up to date on the latest issues that are in compliance, the latest challenges, topics, themes? And that very much is where membership sits. So if you've already completed a qualification, or when you do, before you undertake the next, you can complete your 35 hours of CPD, which will keep you up to date on the emerging themes, the latest hot topics. You can go to conferences, you view the CPD library, reading Compliance magazine, and access that network of members around the world to learn from peer to peer. And that very much is the key benefit in terms of ongoing development. We're always up to date in things in terms of webinars, live recordings, and hot topic briefing, face-to-face events. So please go onto the ICA membership pages and have a look at the upcoming events that we've got available for you. Okay, so in terms of membership, that is all from me. I guess what would be helpful now, if we've got some questions on the screen which we've been answering as we go along. The last couple of minutes of the session really is for any final questions that you'd like to post. Jonathan and I will remain online, and we'll be able to answer some of these as and when they come up. So please take the opportunity. I hope you found this session really useful. So for those of you who don't have any further questions, as you've seen already, there are various websites, so the ICA website and ICT website, which you can access for your course information. And as Jonathan's referenced a few times, we're here on the phone if you have any questions around your personal circumstances that you'd like to discuss. We'll be more than happy to take those calls and help you with them. So thank you very much for logging in today. If you have any further questions, please stay online for a couple of minutes. For those of you who don't, we really thank you for taking the time out, and hopefully that was a good session for you to get the information that you required.
Thank you.